Hi, welcome back. This is the Visual Video Glossary, series of videos that illustrate some of the key concepts in art therapy. I'm Dominik Havsteen-Franklin, Professor of Practice in Art Therapies at Brunel University. This is my colleague Liliana.
I'm Liliana Montoya de la Cruz. I'm the Program Lead for the MA in Art Psychotherapy at Brunel, and I'm a practicing art psychotherapist.
So the video is going to be very practice-based. We will go through some theory, and the questions have really come from our students at Brunel, who've really wanted to inquire more deeply into some of the concepts that we've been applying and teaching on the program. And today's concept we're going to be looking at, or concepts, around containment and holding, two key concepts in art therapy, and in a way need some time to unpack because it's not obvious immediately what we mean by them. We assume that containment is a shape that gives some boundary. But in therapeutic practice, what does this look like and what does it mean?
Well, I wanted to start by maybe creating a place where the therapist creates space for the client to be able to process emotional content.
Sure, so it must feel safe, right?
And it must feel safe,
Yeah.
and not just in terms of the environment,
Yeah.
but also of the relationship.
Sure. So in that sense, containment means something around how they can see themselves in the environment as being held. So it's something that has sufficient familiarity, but also sense of security, stability, continuity, that aids some quality of being contained. That there is a space that's demarcated as for them, both in time and physical space. Yeah, it's something about the environment. So this is, in a way, you're giving shape to that through the
Transparent walls that hold us, that hold that relationship and that space.
Yeah.
For the client to be able to...
So to be able to express, but also
process.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the image you've just drawn obviously has this outside and inside, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and we don't know what's happening in the centre, but you have a sense of the container.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Surroundings. That already kind of sets the stage for being able to start to feel safe that this is somewhere where the patient or the client comes, then is able to obviously have materials that they use.
But I think what's important to think about here is the person is coming to therapy for a reason, right? There's something about the trauma, the struggle, something emotionally troublesome that they're bringing into this space. And so it's not that they're coming as somebody who's expecting a sort of a good relation necessarily, or even if they are expecting a good relation, so there's some quality of struggle that the person is bringing into this space that shouldn't repel us, right? Because we may feel, this feels uncomfortable, difficult to be with, and the quality of containment, is something about how we accept that, how we absorb, make sense of, bring this back into the space in a way that can be shared and understood. So that quality of containment is a dynamic process, and I guess the risk here about having containment is it becomes a static entity, because of course we talk about time and boundaries and and having a regularity of space and so on. But containment is an active, dynamic quality that brings rise to meaningful occurrences around often traumatic events. So we understand those through the shape of this container, the way it evolves, what the felt qualities are within that space, and how we process them. Bearing in mind that, in the image, I'm just thinking about the image that Liliana's produced. Interestingly, there are colours and shades which, sort of resonate within that space, and so it's quite likely the container you provide will provide openings and possibilities for client or patient's experience that kind of have a sense of belonging there. So in this sense, knowing yourself, spaces in your world are likely to be occupied by what these people will bring, what your patient or client will bring. So in that sense, containment is both sort of co-constructed because it's about you as a person and the client, but it's also something that's dynamic.
It is a sort of open shape because, of course, there are factors from the environment as well that come and influence that.
Some models would try to establish this hermeneutic vase, which is entirely sealed, but the real world is much more complex. And there'll be sounds, for example, or there'll be disclosures because of the things you wear or the things that you do. There'll be things from outside always bubbling, always appearing, always they'll be in sight in one way or another. And of course, they affect the shape of that container. So this adds a dynamic quality to how this container is formed, and also what ruptures mean in that context, and the importance of ruptures within a containing environment.
What we want for our clients are to be able to have had that space and have had that containment that they can then go away. They can feel safe in kind of navigating the intricacies of their, the emotional experiences that they might have outside of the therapeutic room. So,
of course, one of the earliest forms of containment, in both senses, is with the carer and infant.
It's the idea of that good enough carer.
Yeah, absolutely.
That allows for that young child to be able to feel safe under that carer's gaze, but be able to kind of go away, explore, and come back and feel safe.
So in a way, what I'm hearing is you have a well-developed sense of containment about you, because what I mean by this is that the image you've produced is like a sort of ideal scenario. Somebody comes into this space and there's a nice fit and there's an opening to the outside. Of course, this isn't always the case, and people don't always have this developed sense of containment. I mean, people come with things that feel punctured or fragmented or in different places or unpredictable, and there isn't the difference between, spaces inside and outside become very distorted or blurred, and so what's theirs, what isn't theirs, becomes really difficult to navigate.
I think initially it's about the therapist's stance, how they kind of inhabit the space as well, what they offer the client in terms of their emotional regulation, and how they can attune to the client and help them regulate. As a therapist, it's very important to be very aware of our own, how regulated we are in that moment.
I see.
To be able to meet that person, calm, present position or stance, to allow that person to slowly come into the body. Sometimes that dysregulation is very mental, so it's important to bring the person back to how they're feeling in their bodies, what's happening, to become aware of where that dysregulation is.
Also beginning to see how this can be held in mind or held in body in a different kind of way through the experience of the therapist.
The action, the physical action, it is also soothing and self-regulating too.
Yeah. Because, of course, I'm getting it out there in some sort of way. I'm saying, I'm sort of, rather than slamming the desk or doing something
or shouting,
it's kind of put into the paper, so to speak, and it's left there with a mark that already has, because on the paper itself, of course, I could have gone off the edge and so on, but still, it's kind of held in a particular space. I still have it within this kind of context. So there's something about presence of attention, allowing this process to emerge, where it's becoming expressive and it's externalized as a therapeutic act in its own right.
If it is a fantasy that it's just discard this and it's never going to bother me, it's never going to come, then I think that itself has to be part of the conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so you bring it back in, so you contain it, so in a way you invite it back into the space, and partly through having a conversation, but are there ways that you could do this through the arts?
Absolutely. So what happens through the arts is sometimes some elements from previous images might, but we might revisit them.
Yeah.
And also in the process, something I tend to do with clients. It's midpoint sometimes, or at the end, but usually, always midpoint. We revisit the work.
Yeah.
We look at the work from the beginning right up until that point, and then sometimes things are brought back to the fore.
Yeah.
And then we can begin a conversation about that again. So.
Yeah. So in a way, you're trying to, although you're not saying, you're not putting down rules like these are the boundaries of this space, you are keeping an open, as you said something before, which I thought was quite nice, was about this sort of rather transparent edge, where things can go inside and outside. But you're inviting things, like you're inviting this experience to be held in that space one way or another. So if I assume I can sort of cut it off and in fantasy leave it behind as if it never happened or would never happen again, in a way you're creating the possibility of extending that frame and saying, well, how do we create a space where this can still be held? You talk about bringing the person back to their bodies, because in a way that's already a container, right? That's right. That's what we have, this delimitation, right? And this is what carries us in the world, and that's how we can interact with the rest of the world. Yeah. So that's a very fundamental, and of course another thing I was thinking about, and this is important to our students, is the kind of elasticity. We have this boundary around our body which develops, throughout our lives, but of course there's a sense of movability and elasticity that holds different elements together, which also containers of different forms. So of course our understanding of containment comes from this bodily processing and the way that our organs work together and the way that they're held together, which has been widely written about by a number of different psychoanalysts. But it does give us this sense of the bodily nature at a very fundamental level of what containment means within the therapeutic context.
I think it's important to think that sometimes the space, the therapeutic space, might be the only safe space where this can happen.
Yeah,
because other spaces where our clients or patients might be, it might not feel safe to be able to express this uncontrolled, erratic. In the therapeutic space, we model that safe place where this can happen.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So there's also something about how a fragile environment with somebody may not express their feelings, might hold them, or might not even recognise them, but feel them and act them in different ways. So with a fragile environment, for fear of damaging their environment, may well choose not to express these feelings. So then of course finding a language for it may be quite difficult. So the person might come in and express it because there's a sense, there's a fit, there's this. If we go back to the original image, there's a sense that there is a container there that's ready, so to speak, can take this, won't fall apart or react or judge or criticise.
So there's something about kind of repairing these very early.
It's the basis of a good attachment, right? That you're able to hold in mind and body the presence of another person's experiences, like different feelings, beliefs, desires, and so forth. So then, in a way, the client or patient will also become be able to contain more effectively. Not their own experiences, but also other people's experiences.
Other people.
Yeah. So that's why we're doing it essentially, to improve these kinds of relations, right? So to summarise, there are some fundamental, principles of containment which really are very body-based. And so finding a language for anxieties, difficulties that someone might be experiencing may not initially come from a verbal place. Using other materials which are much more body-based, like I can just move this around in the ways that my body kind of tells me, so to speak, becomes a direct form of expression that then we can maybe have a conversation around, which feels quite meaningful.
Two things come to mind. Supervision.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, this is a great point. Yeah.
I think. And also personal therapy.
We have the artwork as a kind of container. We have the relationship. The therapist is a kind of container. We have the immediate environment, the space itself. the organisation, maybe you belong as part of a team or a network of some sort, which provides another quality of containment, your supervisor, the therapist. But we can go on to the culture, the society, there are things around like politics. So there are lots of elements that may, to various different degrees, support or impinge on a sense of containment right here and right now. So that ends our third video. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.